Hi guys, my name is Tareem and welcome back to my channel. So as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about all the books I've read so far for the Reading Around the World Challenge. So I've not done too many, I've only read 14 so far and I'm currently reading my 15th one. Although some of these I would say don't fully count, you'll understand why, but other ones I'm just amazed by the writing style, the cultures, just everything engulfed into one book is just beautiful to see. Okay, so the first one that we're going to be talking about is, well, let's go through Europe first. Okay, so the first one is Sweden. So for Sweden, I read two books by Fredrik Backman. The first one was The Deal of a Lifetime, and this one is like just a really short and sweet read. It's about this it's about a man and a boy in a hospital, and it kind of talks through the different experiences that they both have, but also it's like a nice unlikely friendship type of thing. Yeah, and then the other one by Fredrik Backman is Anxious People. I don't think I've ever laughed so much in one book before. This was just incredibly funny, but it was also wholesome because it's how everybody gets together. Basically, there's a group of people who are looking at an apartment in hopes of buying it, and there's a bank robbery that's just happened, and then the robber goes and, basically invades these people's space and stays there. And it's about these two police officers, they're a father and son duo, who there's just in the nicest way possible, they're supposed to be just really stupid and just confused about what's happening, because it is like a smaller city in Sweden, so it's not Stockholm where this kind of stuff is normal. This stuff never happens in this place. I can't remember exactly which city it's in, but either way, it's so funny. And honestly, I think I want to kind of reread this at this point, because I think if you do just need a laugh whilst you're looking into Sweden, this is definitely the one for you. If you're looking for something that's more sentimental, Fredrik Backman has so many other books that are deeper, but there is a lot of moments in this where it talks about life, it talks about love, it talks about hope. It's just a beautiful read. I would strongly recommend this one. The next one is England, and for England I chose to read Orbital by Samantha Harvey. And I actually think this is a really good read if you want to read one for England. It's short, but it's just so profound. It's about these group of astronauts that are from different places, they're from different countries, but it's about their experience in space. It is riveting, and you just have such a good idea of what it's like to be in space and what it's like for the individuals who are then gone for months at a time and potentially years at a time. Yeah, and it's just about their interactions with each other, as well as trying to understand the state that they're in whilst they're in space. It's just beautiful. I strongly recommend this one as well. The next one I read was from Italy, and it's called One Way Ticket to Earth. It's about this boy who has passed away on Earth, and he's reborn on a different planet, but unlike the other people, he still has memories of Earth, and so he's trying to convince everybody on that planet that I am from a different planet, and on this planet this is what happens. And yeah, it's just kind of his friendships that he makes, the stuff that he goes through, and it's honestly the ending, I didn't actually see it coming, what happens at the end, but it's really cute, and so I'd strongly recommend that one as well. I would just say for Italy, I'm probably going to read another book as well that's set in Italy, or by an Italian author that's set in Italy, maybe a classic that's in Italian literature. Just because there's a few on here which I'm just I don't know if it fully counts, but because it was a short and sweet read, but it didn't have any sort of cultural aspects, whereas I feel like the other two books sort of did. So I do plan on reading another one for Italy. Okay, and then if we move on to Africa, I'm just doing this in a random order, I'm not gonna lie to you. In Africa, I've only read two books so far. So the first one was Algeria, and I read The Outsider, also known as The Stranger in other places. I think it's just a translation thing. So yeah, and honestly, I think this book I don't know if I'm just really stupid or if this book just didn't hit the way I was expecting it to. I do understand what people mean by like the writing style is really fascinating, just the pacing is really interesting, but the actual plot is very confusing. I think the only time I was actually like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen, was towards the end. And even then it was really interesting because he has a different perspective on his life. It's about this man who feels like an outsider at all points, I suppose, but also he's just very unique in his behaviorisms, I suppose. I think there would be an argument to say that he may potentially be autistic, but during the point this was written, I don't know if that was the theme that that the author intended. Yeah, so it's just about him kind of moving to a different city, I want to say. Just his views on human life and like how he's making friends, his day-to-day life, but then there's like a tragedy that occurs midway or later down, and it's just very confusing. But then there's talks of the fact that like he doesn't understand what he did, and that's why I'm kind of saying like there is an aspect of like modern day we can kind of see that he may have been autistic, but he's kind of just viewing things and taking it in, and so I think it is really interesting in that aspect. I would recommend reading this for Algeria, but yeah, I don't know if I would ever reread this. I think it'd be interesting to annotate perhaps, but even then there's only so much I would potentially focus on. Other than that, the writing style is beautiful, I will say that. There was a lot of cases where I was just smitten by the writing alone because it's so unique and I've not read something in this manner before. So take that however you will. I would recommend reading this. It is really confusing, but it will make you think about the world that we live in and how our brains kind of figure out different things. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. The next book that I read for Africa was from Ghana, and I read briefly Perfectly Human. And honestly, this book was a hug that I wasn't expecting. It's about this death doula who she's kind of talking, I think it's a non-fiction, so she's talking about her own experiences as like a traveler and as a death doula. And it's just really interesting how different people process grief and how there's not actually anybody there to guide you when you're going through certain situations. It talks about Alua Arthur's like own experience, like she talks about her own experiences and like the friendships she makes, but then she's like, she can tell when somebody's grieving. She can tell, like, I don't know, maybe it's like an instinctual thing. But I do think that this is just a really interesting read. I think if you do want to read a non-fiction, this would definitely be high up there on my list. The next continent we're going to is North America. Now, both of these, I don't know if they fully count, just because in my head, I don't know more about the country. I don't know more about the history or the philosophy or the psychology. I don't know anything. But the authors are from these places and they are both set in these places. I kind of just, I don't know. I feel like these are basically cop-outs, but also if you want to read them, go ahead. The first one will do the USA, and I read a rom-com for this. I put The Paradise Problem as my USA pick because despite everything, this is kind of how I feel like Americans are. And maybe that's a very biased point of view from me personally, but it's also okay, so I love Christina Lauren, like I love the duo authors. I have read pretty much everything by them, but I mean, when I was reading this, I was like, hey, technically they're American and it's set in America, so why not? This is a really good book if you do want to pick this up. I don't really think I should be talking too much about this because it's not anything much to do with America. Okay, I'm pretty sure that this is about a couple who has been divorced, but then the guy he wants to inherit his family's wealth and businesses and whatever not. And so he kind of doesn't mention that he has been divorced, if that makes sense. But also it was kind of one of those weddings where it just happens. And it was just a random decision. But yeah, and then she then ends up having to go with him to his sister's wedding and it's basically like a fake dating trope mixed with like the holiday destination. It's a cute book, but yeah. I mean, I guess that is pretty American. I don't know. The one I chose for Canada is a non-fiction, and it's I Hope You Remember by Josie Balker. So I realized I'm not actually saying any of the authors' names, I don't know why. This is a poetry collection which I absolutely adore. I don't think there's many poetry collections where I can say more than, I'd say like 70% I have either liked or loved. Whereas I'd say for this one, it was probably about, let's go with 79%. Of 79% of these poems I absolutely loved. I think it talks about reminiscing on childhood. It just talks about memories in such a beautiful way. It talks about love, life, longing, and I don't know, it's just beautifully written, and I'd strongly recommend reading this. The next one is South America. I've only read one book from South America so far, which is from Ecuador. And it's also a poetry collection, which is Clarity and Connection. Honestly, I did not really enjoy this that much, if I'm being completely honest. There was a lot of good pieces of advice, I suppose, and there was a lot of really deep rhetorical questions, as well as like, what does it mean to behave in a certain way, and like letting go of things and people's versions of you and your version of yourself. It's very much like a self-awareness kind of book. But if I'm being honest, I don't know, it was just lacking in a lot of things. I think a lot of the poems, I was like, you're almost saying something, but you're not saying it. And it's not in a way that like you can guess it yourself. It's very much in like an, oh my goodness, like what are you trying to say from this? So yeah, I don't know, I think I'm probably going to read something else for Ecuador, just because I want to have like I said, this just doesn't have like too much to do with culture and stuff as well. It does have to do with society, but I still would argue that I would need to read something that's from Ecuador, if that makes sense. The next one is Asia, and the sun is setting, so I'm just gonna quickly go through these ones. Asia, so I read two books from Japan. One is Before Your Memory Fades, and then the other one is Sweet Bean Paste. I would not recommend Sweet Bean Paste. I absolutely love all of these books by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Before the Coffee Gets Cold was really good. I think this one was really good as well. And I will be picking up the third one, which I will be reading shortly as well. I think most of you guys probably know what this is about, but it's basically, imagine going to a coffee shop where if you sit in a specific seat at a specific time, you can then go and talk to somebody either from the past or from the future. But there's a lot of like terms and conditions to that. And the thing is, even if you were to speak to them, it doesn't change anything for them, but it does change it for you. I don't know, I think it's quite nice, but it's also interesting to see what people choose to say and what people choose to do when they do have those conversations, and how much it can impact them. I don't know, I just think these collections are beautiful. The writing style is really nice, just the interactions of the actual people in the cafe is really cute. So yeah, strongly recommend. This one, Sweet Bean Paste, is also from Japan. This is about a man who is trying to run like a sweet bean paste shop, and he hires this old woman, but then he realizes, I can't remember exactly what illness she has, but it was kind of going around Japan during a very specific time. He's kind of wary on having her there, because like every time like the school kids come in and see her, they're like, oh my goodness, like stay away from her, because like her fingers are a bit odd. But then there's this one girl who really likes her, and so there's like a nice little friendship that like is born there. But other than that, I just didn't enjoy this a lot, if I'm being honest. So yeah. The next one from Asia is Lebanon, and I read The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I absolutely love this book. There is nothing you can say that will probably take me away from this book. It's literally just a list of things to live by, is how I want to say it. It's just very easy to read. It's literally just like stories from different people, but it has morals. I think that's the easiest way to explain what this book's about, but it's a lot more profound, and it's just really, really nicely done. So strongly recommend this for Lebanon. For the UAE, I also read a poetry book, which honestly, I think if you were doing UAE, this is such a good book to be reading, because it literally talks about the culture in depth, and it talks about the different traditions of the people here. It talks about the history, it talks about the values, and it's just done in a really poetic way. So yeah, I strongly recommend Of Palm Trees and Skies. The next one I read, I actually read this one recently, is Jaya Time at Cinnamon Gardens, and this is for Sri Lanka. Honestly, I have not given a book 5 stars in a really, really long time, and this was a 5-star read for me. It was beautiful. The writing style was just gorgeous and stunning. It's about this care home or like elderly place where different types of people are. There's a lot of multicultural people that kind of get on in this place. Most of them are either from Sri Lanka, they're Tamil, I think those are the main ones, to be fair, but I think there are Pakistanis, there are Indians, whatever. But it is mainly Sri Lankans that reside here. And it's about the caretakers, it's about the people who live there. It's just, the stories are so beautifully interwoven together. And it's just a beautiful book. I don't know how else to explain it. I think it discusses Sri Lanka and like the Sri Lankan history in quite a bit of depth, and all the horrors that are happening there. It discusses Australia, which is where the home is. And it discusses like modern day racism in Australia in regards to Sri Lankans as well. And so I think it just makes such a good point of, I don't know, it's just relevance, but then it's also like history meets the modern day, but then I don't know, it also talks about Australia and the fact that the people who are trying to kick the Sri Lankans out are not indigenous to the land. Like Australians also came and took over. And so they're constantly telling people to get out of our land, but it's not your land to begin with. And I don't know, it makes a really good point in doing so. So yeah, I'd strongly recommend reading that. The other one I have for India, I'm just going to brush over because I plan on reading a different one for India, but it is Forever Yours. And this was also a romance. It is set in India, but and it does have a lot of culture going on, to be fair. But I just don't really think it counts. Not because it's a romance, but because it doesn't have the depth that fiction has, that literary fiction has, or that can be acquired from poetry, or can be acquired through any other means, basically. So I do plan on reading a different one for India, but this one was also cute. It's like a work romance that is just really weird, but it's cute, I guess. So yeah. And then in Oceania, this is the last one, for Australia, I read The Love Contract. This, I will also say the same thing, because I think I learned more from Australia, as in I learned more about Australia from the Jaya Time at Cinnamon Gardens than I did from this novel. This was also just like a romance, so yeah. Also, I feel like it's getting really dark. The sun is setting, so I am going to try wrapping this up quickly. But yes, I do plan on reading another one for Australia, but The Love Contract, it's literally just a rom-com. Like that's the best way I can explain it, but it is really good. I would recommend it. I think it is one of those, obviously it's called The Love Contract. It's one of those like business proposals, or we're just getting married, or we're just being in a relationship for business purposes, and then we'll both go off on our own ways. But then obviously romance starts bubbling up and all that good stuff. The last book I just want to quickly mention is the book I'm currently reading, which is The Book Thief. So this would be, I don't know if it would be for Germany or if it would be for Austria, because the writer is, as in Markus Zusak, is Austrian, but it's set in Germany, so I'm kind of confused with where this one kind of falls. but I am on page, I'm like on page 50, I'm not very far into it at all. But so far so good. I have actually laughed in this book more times than I thought I would. So it is surprisingly comical, despite the horrific nature of what's actually happening. Yeah, I think this is actually going to be quite high up on the star rating, if I'm being honest. So yeah, let's see how that goes. But yeah, those are all the books that I have read so far and I'm currently reading for the Reading Around the World Challenge. If you have any questions about any of these, or if you do have any recommendations, please do let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so sorry it just got dark really quick, the sun just set. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a new video very soon. Bye. I don't think... Oh my god, what the heck?